The sea has always whispered secrets, carrying echoes of gods, myths, and untold wonders beyond the horizon. In the beginning, before maps and compasses, the ocean was a living mystery feared and worshipped alike. Among the immortals, one god ruled this restless domain, a figure both feared and revered in equal measure. He was Poseidon, lord of the deep, keeper of tides, and master of a trident forged in fire and legend. Every wave that rose and fell was said to move at his command, each tide a silent rhythm of his will. Sailors spoke his name before journeys, seeking calm seas and safe passage through uncharted waters. For they believed Poseidon was not only a ruler, but a guardian and a teacher in nature's vast classroom. His domain was not just salt and water, but storms, stillness, and the unbroken voice of eternity itself. When clouds gathered and thunder rolled, mortals felt his presence in the fury of the untamed sea. Yet in quiet moments, when the ocean lay calm, his blessing could be felt in every gentle ripple. This is the story of Poseidon, not of battle or blood, but of creation, awe, and timeless tidal fury. In the age before time was measured, the world was vast, mysterious, and filled with unseen power. Mountains rose high, rivers carved valleys, and skies stretched endless over a young and fragile earth. From this endless canvas, the sea stood apart, deep and restless, shimmering with unknown promise. It was not just water and waves, but a realm alive, a kingdom waiting for a master to call it home. The Olympian gods, children of destiny, divided the cosmos to bring order from the shadows of chaos. Zeus claimed the skies, where lightning flashed and thunder roared with divine command and promise. Hades took the underworld, a hidden realm of spirits and secrets beneath the weight of living earth. And to Poseidon, the sea was given, infinite and untamed, a world of mystery without beginning or end. Poseidon was not like his brothers, for his heart beat with the rhythm of tides and endless horizons. He looked upon the waves and saw not danger, but a living song that spoke to his soul with fierce wonder. Each current was a whisper, each tide a heartbeat, and every storm a challenge to his boundless spirit. To him, the ocean was not chaos, but creation, an ever-shifting mirror of eternity's breath. Poseidon's birthright was not chosen lightly, for the sea was a place of beauty and sudden change. Gentle one moment, fierce the next. Its moods reflected the balance of strength and fragility. Mortals feared the sea, for it could both nourish their lives and test their courage without warning. But Poseidon embraced it fully, shaping his identity as guardian, ruler, and eternal voyager. Legends say his laughter rolled across waves like distant thunder when the seas danced in sunlight. They say his voice carried in the crash of waves, teaching mortals to respect the ocean's sacred power. His eyes mirrored the depth of the sea, vast and unreadable, filled with endless mystery and might. He was a god of presence, felt as much as seen, woven into the spirit of every shoreline. Yet Poseidon's story was more than inheritance, for he shaped the sea into more than a silent abyss. He filled it with movement, with creatures that swam, and with currents that circled the globe. The sea became a world within a world, a universe of hidden wonders beneath the waves. Every ripple was part of his design, every storm a lesson, every calm tide a gift of grace. Sailors would later say the ocean breathed with him, as if Poseidon's soul pulsed in its waves. When they prayed before voyages, it was his protection they sought across uncharted waters. They offered gifts at harbors, casting prayers like pebbles into the sea's endless depths. For they knew the god of the deep could grant safe passage or teach humility through storms. Poseidon's birth as ruler of the sea was not a coronation, but a bond sealed with destiny. His trident, forged by the Cyclopes, was not a weapon of war, but a symbol of balance. With it, he could stir the waters, calm the tempests, or summon the rhythm of the tides. It was the key to his authority, but also a reminder of his role as creator and guardian. This bond between Poseidon and the sea shaped not only the ocean, but the world itself. From the crash of waves to the gentle kiss of tides, his essence lingered in every shore. The sea was no longer a wild expanse, but a living hymn that mortals could hear and feel. And at the center of that hymn stood Poseidon, eternal, the god born to rule the deep. Thus begins his story, not in conflict, but in creation, in wonder, and in timeless connection. Poseidon was more than a god of the sea. He was the sea, breathing, eternal, and ever-changing. Every tide carried his presence, every storm revealed his will, every calm whispered his blessing. The world would forever know him as Poseidon, the creator of Tidal Fury, lord of the endless deep. In the heart of legend, after Poseidon claimed the sea, he was granted a gift unlike any other, a trident of power. Forged by the Cyclopes, the ancient smiths of fire and stone, it was a creation meant to endure for eternity. Each stroke of their hammer carried divine intention, shaping not just a tool, but a symbol of balance and order. The trident shone with brilliance, its 3 prongs gleaming like sunlight, breaking through storm clouds at dawn. This was not a weapon for conquest, but a key to the rhythm of the seas, the pulse of the ocean's heart. With it, Poseidon could stir waves to life, or lay them gently to rest with a motion of his steady hand. The trident embodied the duality of the ocean, holding calm and fury together in delicate, eternal harmony. Sailors imagined it carving pathways through storms, opening channels where none existed, guiding ships to safety. They told tales of the trident striking, the sea not to destroy, but to awaken its sleeping energy within. The sound was said to echo like thunder, a reminder that nature listened to the call of its master. Poseidon held it with reverence, knowing it was more than a divine instrument. It was his bond with creation. Every spark of lightning upon water, every shift of tide, felt tied to the silent command of this gift. He did not see it as a crown, but as responsibility, a sacred duty to keep balance in endless seas. Through the trident, Poseidon shaped the ocean not as a battlefield, but as a living, breathing kingdom. It allowed him to summon currents that carried life and to calm storms that threatened fragile mortal ships. When storms grew wild, his trident was the anchor, reminding mortals the sea was mighty yet merciful. Legends spoke of him tracing circles in the waves, teaching tides to rise and fall with rhythmic perfection. It was said that when the trident touched the earth, fresh springs burst forth, gifts of water for mortals. Such tales were not warnings of wrath, but promises that Poseidon's reach extended to nourish all life. The trident's glow was eternal, seen not in fire but in the shimmer of moonlight upon restless waters. Children of fishermen whispered that Poseidon painted stars upon the sea with his sacred 3-pronged staff. Even kings respected the symbol, for the trident represented sovereignty not over mortals, but over nature. It was a reminder that gods shaped not just fate, but the world itself, weaving harmony into existence. In Poseidon's hand, it became the voice of the ocean, a chorus of waves, tides, and storm-born melodies. Its 3 prongs represented past, present, and future, time itself flowing like water across the world. To mortals, the trident was awe, mystery, and comfort, a promise that the sea was never abandoned. Sailors carved its image upon their ships, believing it would keep them safe in waters without end. Priests prayed to it, seeing in its shape the balance of sky, land, and sea united under divine order. And to Poseidon, it was more than symbol or myth. It was his own soul given form in silver fire. Through it, he became guardian, creator, and teacher, a presence that echoed across every crashing wave. When storms raged, the trident reminded all that fury was never chaos, but nature's call to respect. When seas lay calm, its unseen glow was felt in the peace of harbors and the lull of gentle tides. Poseidon, with his trident, stood eternal, a god whose gift was not destruction, but the power to create. The Cyclopes had forged not just an artifact, but a legacy, a promise that the sea was divine. And so, every drop of water, every wave upon the shore, carried the unseen mark of the trident. Poseidon's gift was not just power, but presence, a reminder that the ocean would forever live and through him. Thus, the story of the trident became the story of the sea itself, eternal, boundless, and alive with wonder. The sea was vast, endless, and filled with wonders that mortals could neither count nor fully understand. In this infinite expanse, Poseidon was not only a ruler, but also a keeper of balance and silent protector. For the ocean was more than water. It was a world that touched every shore and gave life to countless beings. Fishermen looked to the waves with both fear and hope, for their nets depended on the sea's generosity. Before casting lines, they whispered prayers to Poseidon, asking for calm waters and a bountiful catch. They believed the god heard them, guiding schools of fish toward their boats when his heart was generous. Voyagers, too, placed their trust in him, for the sea could either carry them far or swallow them whole. Every journey began with offerings, wine, bread, or small treasures cast into the waves as sacred gifts. To mortals, the sea was a path of opportunity, and Poseidon was the guardian of its shifting doorways. He was said to ride the waves upon chariots drawn by seahorses, a vision of majesty and power. When sailors saw waves rise tall, they imagined his presence, watching silently as they braved the storm. For Poseidon was not their enemy. He was the teacher who demanded respect from all who touched the sea. A careless heart would learn quickly that the ocean listened and answered in ways both fierce and gentle. Yet a humble soul, offering gratitude, often found calm waters and stars guiding them safely to shore. Temples rose along coastlines, built not of grandeur, but of devotion, filled with prayers of simple lives. Salted air carried incense and hymns as mortals honored the god who ruled the world beneath the waves. Festivals brought joy, with dancers moving like tides, their rhythm echoing the heartbeat of the ocean. Children tossed flowers into harbors, believing Poseidon would smile upon their games and laughter. Even kings sought his favor, knowing their navies and trade relied upon his unseen protection. In their eyes, Poseidon was not only lord of seas, but guardian of fortune, travel, and survival. He was present in every ripple that kissed the shore, a reminder of life's fragile yet enduring nature. When storms threatened, priests calmed the fearful with words that Poseidon tested courage, not destroyed. They said the waves that rose high were not punishments, but lessons of humility from the god of seas. The ocean was his temple, vast and borderless, open to all yet ruled by none but him alone. To walk a beach was to tread sacred ground, with every shell a token of Poseidon's endless kingdom. He kept the balance between calm and chaos, never one without the other, harmony within his hands. Without storms, mortals would forget respect. Without calm, they would lose hope in the promise of return. Thus, Poseidon remained keeper, ensuring the sea was always more than a mirror. It was a living spirit. Mortals grew to see the sea not only as danger, but as a companion, constant, faithful, and eternal. They looked upon the horizon and knew that beyond it lay mystery, guided by Poseidon's silent will. Each voyage was both risk and blessing, every harbor both farewell and homecoming under his watch. Generations passed, yet the sea's voice remained, whispering the same eternal truth of respect and awe. Poseidon's role as keeper was not to dominate mortals, but to remind them they were part of the sea. He was the unseen hand that steadied their sails, the breath that filled winds with promise of travel. And when night fell, stars reflecting on waters seemed like gifts from Poseidon to light their way. He was keeper not only of oceans, but of dreams, journeys, and the fragile hopes carried by mortals. In every tide, his presence lingered. In every wave, his lesson spoke. The sea is alive. Honor it well. Thus the god of the deep was forever remembered as guardian, ruler, and friend to all who sailed. The ocean is alive, breathing with a rhythm as steady as the heartbeat of the world itself. This rhythm is the tide, rising and falling, whispering Poseidon's presence through its endless dance. Long before science gave explanation, mortals believed the tides were the footsteps of a god. Each surge was thought to be his call, each retreat his gentle breath returning to the deep. To stand on the shore was to hear his song, a symphony played by waves against rocks and sand. In the hush of dawn, the sea pulled back, revealing treasures hidden beneath its silver skin. At night, under moonlight, the waters crept forward as if to embrace the land once again. Mortals marveled at this constant cycle, unbroken, eternal, a promise from Poseidon himself. The tides were more than motion. They were messages, speaking of time, patience, and balance. For Poseidon was a teacher, and the sea his vast classroom, filled with lessons of harmony. A rising tide reminded mortals of opportunity, new chances flowing in with each returning wave. A falling tide spoke of humility, of letting go, of yielding when the world called for rest. Thus, the ocean became a mirror of life, reflecting joy, sorrow, growth, and renewal alike. Sailors believed the tide carried omens, signs of journeys safe or trials yet to come. Fishermen watched the rhythm closely, for their livelihoods depended on Poseidon's hidden calendar. Even poets found inspiration, comparing the human soul to the ebb and flow of the tide. Children laughed as waves chased their feet, never knowing they played in the god's eternal song. Priests told stories that each tide was Poseidon's hand, reaching out and withdrawing with grace. When the sea rose high, they said the god was drawing near, listening to prayers on the shore. When it fell away, they whispered he had returned to his palace beneath coral and stone. Legends told of the trident marking the waters, creating the pulse that shaped oceans forever. Its prongs struck the depths, and the sea responded, rising and falling in eternal obedience. The tides, then, were not chance, but design, a divine harmony echoing through time without end. Mortals grew to honor this rhythm, lighting fires on beaches to greet the waves at dusk. Some believed the flames spoke with the tide, a conversation between earth and sea under stars. Others listened in silence, hearing in the waves the voices of ancestors carried across waters. For the ocean was memory, and Poseidon its keeper, ensuring no story was ever forgotten. Every shore told a tale, shaped by the tides that kissed it day after day, age after age. Rocks worn smooth, shells scattered, sands shifted, all bore witness to the god's eternal hand. The tide was both gentle and relentless, proof that time moves forward yet always returns again. Mortals saw in this cycle comfort, knowing endings were never final, but part of renewal. Poseidon's fury was not destruction, but momentum, urging mortals to respect the power of change. His calm was not silence, but invitation, a reminder of peace found after storms had passed. To live by the sea was to live with Poseidon, to learn his lessons in every wave. Generations grew old listening to the same song, yet each heard it as if for the first time. The tides became sacred, a bridge between divine will and mortal existence across endless ages. Even today, when the sea rises and falls, its rhythm still echoes Poseidon's timeless presence. Each wave a note, each tide a verse, together forming the hymn of the creator of Tidal Fury. The sea was never still, for within its depths countless creatures lived, moved, and thrived under Poseidon's gaze. Legends say the gods shaped them not only for survival, but also as symbols of wonder and mystery. The dolphin, swift and graceful, was said to be his messenger, carrying joy across the rolling waves. Sailors saw dolphins leap beside ships and believed it a blessing, a sign of safe passage ahead. To many, the dolphin was proof that Poseidon's realm was not only power, but also gentle kindness. Then there was the mighty whale, vast as an island, its song echoing through waters like ancient prayers. Its presence reminded mortals of humility, that the sea could hold life greater than their imagination. Whales were keepers of secrets, carrying echoes of the deep where sunlight could never reach. Fishermen told tales that whales followed the rhythms of Poseidon's heart, swimming with the tides eternal. Among coral palaces lived schools of shimmering fish, each scale sparkling like starlight upon the waves. They moved together as one body, turning and gliding with elegance beyond mortal comprehension. It was said Poseidon taught them the art of unity, a lesson mortals often struggled to learn. Even the smallest creature of the sea, unseen by the human eye, was part of his grand design. Together they formed a tapestry of life, woven with threads of survival, beauty, and eternal renewal. Sea turtles carried the wisdom of time, journeying across oceans with patience carved into their shells. They were living reminders that persistence could conquer distance and silence the storms of despair. Crabs, scuttling along shores, symbolized resilience, always adapting to the rhythm of the restless tide. Every creature, great and small, bore Poseidon's touch, reflecting his balance of strength and gentleness. Mortals learned to watch them, to understand signs in their movement, as if the sea spoke through them. When dolphins vanished, storms soon followed. When seabirds circled low, tempests often drew near. Thus, the animals of the ocean became guides, partners in survival, and teachers in disguise. To harm them was believed to offend Poseidon, for each life was sacred, each role essential. Temples near the shore carved dolphins into stone, whales into murals, fish into glistening mosaics. Priests told stories where Poseidon, in compassion, sent sea creatures to rescue stranded sailors. A dolphin lifting a drowning man, a turtle carrying a child. These were tales told by firelight. They were not only myths, but reminders of harmony, urging mortals to respect the living sea. Children listened wide-eyed, imagining a world where Poseidon's creatures were both friends and guardians. Fishermen prayed before casting nets, asking forgiveness if they took more than the sea could give. For they knew abundance was not endless, and greed invited the gods' disfavor upon their villages. In quiet harbors, dolphins sometimes swam at dusk, their leaps like laughter against the fading sun. Elders said these were gifts, moments where Poseidon allowed mortals to glimpse pure joy. Even the sea's predators, the sharks and eels, were honored, not feared, for they kept balance alive. Without them, the chain would break, and chaos would spread through the waters uncontrolled. Thus, the sea's harmony was fragile, maintained by respect and Poseidon's unseen hand. Travelers returned from voyages with stories of creatures never seen before, marvels of distant seas. Each tale added to Poseidon's legend, painting him as an artist who sculpted life from salt and tide. The ocean was not a void, but a kingdom, vast and diverse, alive with endless voices. Each call, each splash, each shimmer of light beneath waves was part of Poseidon's living symphony. And so, mortals bowed to the sea, not only in fear, but in gratitude for its boundless gifts. For in every creature swimming below, they saw the god's wisdom reflected in scale, shell, and song. The sea was not only a realm of creatures and tides, but also a canvas painted with endless colors of wonder. Beneath the rolling waves, light from the sun pierced through, scattering into rays that danced like golden ribbons. It was said these beams were Poseidon's way of guiding mortals, marking paths even in the endless blue. As the light sank deeper, world changed, revealing coral gardens blooming like living jewels beneath the sea. Corals of crimson, sapphire, and jade stretched like vast palaces, each a testament to Poseidon's artistry. Fish darted among them like sparks of fire, weaving in and out of caverns carved by timeless waters. Seashells lay scattered like treasures, each one a memory of the ocean's whispers etched in delicate spirals. Children who found shells on the shore pressed them to their ears, hearing Poseidon's eternal voice. Some said the sound was the god himself, speaking softly through echoes carried from the deep. Beyond the coral, seaweed forests swayed with the currents, rising like green towers into watery skies. Mortals compared them to temples, sacred and silent, where the god's breath moved every branch. In those groves, turtles glided slowly, and seahorses clung to stems, tiny guardians of the quiet. The deeper one traveled, the more mysteries unfolded, as if Poseidon guarded layers of hidden realms. There were caverns lit by glowing creatures, their bodies shimmering like lanterns in endless night. Mortals who glimpsed them returned with awe, unable to describe the beauty of living stars underwater. Some believed these glowing beings were Poseidon's scribes, writing his will into the darkness. The sea was more than vast. It was infinite, stretching into realms no mortal eye could fully know. Every wave hid stories, every shadow carried secrets, every shimmer was a reminder of divine hands. At dawn, the ocean mirrored the sky, turning gold, pink, and violet, reflecting Poseidon's majesty. At dusk, it darkened into indigo, a quiet veil hiding countless lives moving beneath its surface. The horizon itself became a symbol, a line where earth and heaven met through Poseidon's domain. Sailors watched it in silence, knowing that beyond it lay both danger and discovery. For Poseidon was not only a ruler of seas, but a guardian of journeys, dreams, and horizons. The ocean's beauty was a lesson, teaching mortals to see not only survival, but also grace. To walk along the shore was to step upon the edge of a world crafted by divine vision. Each shell, each stone, each grain of sand was a fragment of Poseidon's timeless artistry. Children ran barefoot through the surf, laughing as foam wrapped around their ankles like playful hands. Their joy was a reflection of the god's gentler side, a reminder that wonder was as divine as power. Even storms, with their flashing skies and roaring waves, revealed beauty in their strength and rhythm. The lightning above mirrored the bioluminescence below, Two worlds joined in Poseidon's grand design. Mortals came to see the sea as a temple, its beauty a form of worship without words. Artists carved shells into ornaments, painted waves onto walls, and sang songs inspired by the tides. Poets compared love to the sea, vast and unmeasured, fierce and tender, endless and eternal. Every story, every song, every prayer carried the mark of Poseidon, creator of Tidal Fury. For his gift was not only power, but beauty, hidden and revealed in equal measure through the sea. And as long as the tides rose and fell, mortals would continue to find wonder in his realm. The sea was not only a realm of beauty, but also a path, a road stretching farther than any mortal land. It carried ships across its surface like leaves on the wind, guiding them toward unknown horizons. For Poseidon was more than a ruler of waves. He was the guardian of travelers and dreamers. Every voyage began with prayer, offerings cast into the surf to ask for calm seas and clear skies. Sailors spoke his name with reverence, believing each tide was his hand, pushing them forward or pulling back. Some voyages were short, linking islands like stepping stones scattered across the vast blue expanse. Others stretched across oceans, where no land could be seen, only sky above and water below. In these moments, mortals felt small, yet strangely close to the divine presence of Poseidon. For the sea was his temple, and every traveler upon it walked through his sacred halls of water. Storms came like tests, sudden and fierce, yet those who endured spoke of lessons hidden within them. They learned patience, courage, and faith, knowing that survival depended on respect for Poseidon's power. Legends told of ships that disappeared, swallowed not in anger but in silence, claimed by the deep. To mortals, these were warnings, reminders that the sea could not be conquered, only respected. But not all stories ended in sorrow, for many spoke of miracles granted by the god. A sudden wind filling empty sails, a calm that stilled raging waters, a guiding star revealed at night. Such moments were believed to be Poseidon's gifts, acts of mercy toward those who honored him. Travelers carried these tales home, spreading awe and reverence for the unseen hand upon the sea. Harbors became places of ritual, where sailors knelt before statues of the god holding his trident. They laid wreaths of flowers upon the waves, believing the blooms would reach his palace below. Children grew up listening to these stories, dreaming of journeys beyond the horizon's glowing line. For to sail was not only to seek new lands, but also to enter into Poseidon's care. Merchants trusted him with their treasures, lovers with their reunions, explorers with their discoveries. Every ship was a prayer upon the sea, carried by faith as much as by wind and wood. And though many feared storms, they also saw them as reminders of the god's living presence. For the sea was alive, never silent, always shifting, echoing the heartbeat of the divine. Poseidon's role as guardian of journeys was not only about protection, but about transformation. No sailor returned the same as when they left. The sea carved strength into their souls. They learned to read the wind, the stars, the tides, and in doing so, learned to hear the god. Some spoke of dreams at sea, visions of a tall figure rising from the waves with calm eyes. These visions were not terrifying, but reassuring, reminders that the ocean was not empty, but inhabited. And in those moments, mortals felt connected, as if Poseidon himself walked beside them on their voyage. The ocean's path was endless, yet each journey carried meaning, a thread woven into the god's design. For Poseidon did not only rule the waters, he shaped the destinies of those who dared to sail them. and as long as ships left shore, prayers would rise, carried by waves to the creator of Tidal Fury. The sea was vast, but within it lay hidden realms, places where mortals believed Poseidon himself walked in majesty. Legends spoke of his palace, a shining citadel built of coral, pearl, and stone carved by the waves. It was said to lie deep beneath the surface, unreachable by mortals, yet always present in their dreams. Walls of sapphire and emerald shimmered like living light, glowing as though the sea itself breathed. Pillars rose tall as mountains, encrusted with shells that sang when touched by currents passing by. Floors of pearl reflected the glow of lanternfish, casting radiant patterns across endless halls. Here, Poseidon's throne stood, carved of coral older than time, wrapped in seaweed like flowing banners. Upon that throne, he was imagined not in fury but in calm, watching over the rise of tides. Mortals believed the palace was guarded by dolphins, whales, and great serpents of the deep. These guardians were not monsters, but protectors, symbols of the god's bond with all sea creatures. Every chamber within the palace was said to echo with the sound of waves, a song eternal. Priests told that the walls held memories, whispers of every prayer ever offered to the sea. Some said when you listened closely to a shell, you could hear echoes from Poseidon's hidden halls. At the palace gates, fountains of water rose endlessly, never ceasing, powered by the god's will. Coral gardens surrounded the citadel, blooming in colors unseen on land, a tapestry of living art. Schools of fish swam through archways, forming shifting mosaics that danced across the palace walls. Jellyfish glowed like lanterns in the corridors, lighting paths where no fire could ever burn. The throne room was imagined as vast, filled with a silence deeper than any mortal had known. And when Poseidon spoke, that silence broke like a wave, carrying his voice across the seas. Mortals described him as both immense and gentle, a presence that brought awe rather than terror. He was said to rise not to punish, but to remind, to teach respect for the living ocean. Even storms, in this vision, were his words. Strong but never cruel, powerful yet filled with purpose. Travelers claimed to have dreamt of the palace, waking with visions of light beneath the sea. Some returned, saying they had been guided by Poseidon's hand, though none could prove the journey. Yet these tales persisted, passed down like treasures, binding mortals closer to their god of tides. Temples on land tried to mirror the palace, with columns carved like coral and walls painted blue. They could never capture its majesty, but their effort was an offering, a reflection of faith. Children were told stories of the palace at night, imagining rooms filled with treasures of the sea. They pictured pearls the size of fists, shells that sang, and waters flowing through crystal stairways. But the true treasure, elders whispered, was not riches, but the wisdom Poseidon shared within. For the palace was not only his home, but a library of the sea's secrets, guarded for eternity. Here were stored the rhythms of tides, the paths of storms, the voices of creatures, the memory of time. Mortals who dreamed of it awoke changed, carrying within them a reverence for life's hidden depths. The palace became a symbol, a reminder that beauty and power could dwell in harmony. Even if no mortal ever set foot there, its vision lived on, shaping how they saw the sea. For in every wave that broke upon the shore, they believed a fragment of the palace resided, and in every shell, pearl, or ripple of light, they found proof of Poseidon's eternal dwelling. Thus the myth of the palace endured, shining beneath the waves, unseen yet never forgotten. A reminder that beneath the surface of all things lies mystery, beauty, and the hand of the divine. The ocean was vast and full of wonders, but it was also home to creatures that stirred mortal imagination. Legends spoke of beings born from the sea, companions and emissaries of Poseidon's endless dominion. Among them were dolphins, seen as messengers of joy, guiding sailors safely through turbulent waters. Their leaps above the waves were believed to be blessings, signs of the god's presence near. Whales, mighty and ancient, were thought to carry the wisdom of the deep within their songs. When sailors heard their distant calls, they felt comfort, as though Poseidon himself whispered to them. Octopuses, mysterious and elusive, were viewed as keepers of secrets, dwelling in shadowed reefs unseen. Some said they guarded treasures of the ocean, hidden from mortals unless the god willed otherwise. Seahorses, delicate yet strong, were said to pull Poseidon's golden chariot across the shimmering sea. They became symbols of grace and endurance, proof that even the smallest carried divine purpose. Mortals saw these creatures not as beasts, but as allies, woven into the god's eternal tapestry. Stories told of sailors saved by dolphins when storms threatened to pull them beneath the waves. Others spoke of whales circling ships, steadying them against tempests with their immense presence. Fishermen offered prayers to octopuses, asking for knowledge of currents and hidden shoals of fish. Children were told that seahorses carried dreams, ferrying them across the sea into gentle sleep. Each creature was both ordinary and divine, a reminder that the sea was alive in countless forms. Priests declared that Poseidon gave voices to animals so mortals might learn humility from them. For to listen to the sea was also to listen to the beings that thrived within it. In harbors, carvings of dolphins adorned temples, and seashells shaped like seahorses were treasured. Travelers wore charms of whales and octopuses, believing they carried protection across unknown waters. Every creature became part of ritual, symbol, and story, weaving faith into daily life. Mortals came to understand that Poseidon's power was not only in storms, but in companionship. The sea was a family, filled with voices that spoke different tongues but shared a song. Fishermen knew that to take from the ocean meant to honor its creatures in return. Thus, rituals grew, where offerings of food or flowers were cast to feed the sea's guardians. Some said that when dolphins appeared beside ships, it was because Poseidon had sent them. Others believed whales carried messages between mortals and gods, their songs rising like prayers. Even the smallest fish, darting in the shallows, was seen as part of his living kingdom. Children listening to these tales began to see the sea not as empty, but as kin. They would greet dolphins with laughter, whisper to shells, and treat each tide pool with respect. Over time, these beliefs shaped how mortals sailed, fished, and lived alongside the sea's bounty. The creatures of the ocean were not to be feared, but understood, honored, and cherished. Legends said Poseidon's palace itself was guarded not by soldiers, but by these beings of the deep. For loyalty, joy, and wisdom were stronger than weapons, and they kept the realm in harmony. Travelers who returned home with such stories filled hearts with awe and reverence for the sea. They spoke not only of waves and storms, but of friendships found with creatures below. Each tale reminded mortals that the ocean was not silent, but alive with countless voices. And behind each voice, they felt the guiding hand of Poseidon, creator of Tidal Fury. Mortals often wondered why the tides moved, rising and falling with rhythm as steady as the heartbeat of the earth. Priests and storytellers answered with tales of Poseidon's will, guiding the waters with purpose and design. They said each tide was a breath of the god, exhaling waves onto shore, then drawing them back again. This rhythm was not chaos, but harmony, a pattern that bound sea and land, into eternal embrace. Farmers near the coast watched the tides to know when to plant, harvest, and bless their fields. Fishermen trusted the pull of water to guide them, knowing Poseidon marked time through the waves. The moon played its part, but mortals believed Poseidon lifted it high to rule the night sky. Together, God and moon danced, weaving tides like threads across the loom of the earth. Sailors spoke of hearing the tides at night, whispering like voices carrying secrets of the deep. Each shift of water seemed alive, reminding mortals that they stood in the presence of divinity. Temples near harbors aligned their rituals with the changing tides, offering prayers at rising waters. They believed high tide brought Poseidon's blessing closer, carrying their words deep into his realm. Low tide, they said, revealed paths hidden beneath the sea, gifts shared from the god himself. Children played along the shore, chasing retreating waves as though racing Poseidon's own hand. Elders smiled, telling them to honor the waves, for games were also prayers in disguise. The tides became more than movement. They were messages, signs guiding mortals in daily life. A calm tide was reassurance, a storm tide a warning, each carrying meaning from the god. Merchants who sailed with the tides prospered, while those who ignored them learned harsh lessons. Thus, tides shaped not only the sea, but the very rhythms of mortal society and trust. Some storytellers said Poseidon walked with his trident, striking the earth to summon waves at will. Others claimed he stirred the ocean with gentle hands, lifting and lowering waters in steady measure. Whichever tale they chose, all agreed the god's touch was within each rise and fall of water. Even in silence, when the sea was still, mortals felt the waiting breath of Poseidon. And when the tide moved again, it was like his heart had spoken, steady and unending. Sailors believed that listening to tides could reveal destiny, showing when to depart and when to stay. Priests cast offerings during high tides, their gifts carried far into the sea's sacred embrace. Fishermen walked upon exposed sand at low tides, gathering shells as blessings from the god. The rhythm of tides reminded mortals that nothing was permanent. All things flowed and returned. It was a lesson in patience, in letting go, and in trusting the cycles of life. For Poseidon's tides mirrored the truth of existence, beginnings and endings, bound in eternal return. Every shore became a page upon which the sea wrote its story, line by line, tide by tide. Some believed the tides carried memories, waves that touched distant lands, returning with whispers. Thus, each tide was not only water, but history, carried across the wide blue expanse. Children asked if Poseidon ever tired of moving the sea, and elders smiled with gentle reply. They said the god did not tire, for the tides were his song, sung forever without end. This song, though wordless, was heard by all who lived near water, comforting and eternal. And so mortals came to live by the sea's rhythm, their lives braided with Poseidon's will. For every wave was a reminder, every retreat a promise, and every return a blessing renewed. Thus the tides became not just nature, but faith, proof that the creator of Tidal Fury watched over all. As the story of Poseidon draws to its end, we find ourselves standing once more upon the shore. The waves rise and fall, carrying with them echoes of every tale told across generations of mortals. We have walked through storms and silence, through palaces of coral and songs of unseen creatures. Each story has been a reflection of the god's hand, shaping the sea and those who sail it. For Poseidon is not only a ruler, but a teacher, guiding mortals with lessons hidden in the waves. He shows them that strength lies not in conquest, but in respect, patience, and reverence for life. Every tide, every current, is part of a greater design, a song written in water and wind. To live by the sea is to live by Poseidon's rhythm, where endings are never final, only renewed. Sailors return home, carrying stories that bind communities together with awe and gratitude. Children grow up listening, dreaming of voyages, knowing they too are part of this endless story. Temples remain, carved stone standing against time, reminding mortals to honor the god who moves oceans. But the truest temple is the sea itself, vast, untamed, alive, and filled with divine presence. When mortals cast offerings upon the water, they do not just pray, they join in the eternal cycle. A cycle where the sea gives and takes, teaches and transforms, yet always remains whole and eternal. Poseidon's fury may roar in storms, but within it is purpose, never cruelty, always balance. His calm may stretch across still waters, reminding mortals of peace as much as power. Together, fury and calm form the essence of his nature, a truth mirrored in the ocean itself. For the sea is not only waves and salt, but a living spirit, bound to the God eternal. And through that bond, mortals learn that they too are part of something greater than themselves. The fisherman who casts his net, the child who runs at the tide, the sailor who prays at dawn, all are woven into Poseidon's realm, carrying forward the faith that has endured for ages. Legends may shift, stories may change, but the presence of the god remains, unbroken and vast. For as long as the sea touches the land, Poseidon's hand will rest upon the world. His trident may not always be seen, but its mark is etched in every wave and ripple. And every storm that passes, every calm that follows, is a reminder of his eternal guardianship. As we close this tale, imagine standing at twilight, the horizon glowing, the sea whispering its song. The tide moves in and out, steady and eternal, as if breathing with the heart of the divine. You listen, and in that rhythm, you hear Poseidon, not distant, but present, alive in every wave. He is not only creator of tidal fury, but also of beauty, harmony, and the endless mystery of the sea. And so the story continues, not in words alone, but in every journey, every prayer, every tide. For Poseidon's voice still speaks, carried forever by the waters that bind the world together,